It is midweek here on NBS TV. We are delighted to be part of your morning here on the Morning Breeze Show. My name is Isabella Tugume. I'm so excited that we're just left with one day and then it will be a weekend. I don't know if all of you are as delighted as I am. It's been a long week. So we would like to go back, relax, and catch up with friends and family. However, this morning our conversation is, I told you, this is one show where we discuss anything and everything. And this morning, the point of conversation for us will be the burden of teenage pregnancy in this country. The highest teenage pregnancy in sub-Saharan Africa is believed to be in Uganda, with 25% of teenage pregnancy registered every year. Why is this a problem that continues to persist? And of course, we want to understand if the statistics are as was then, or if there's been a change in the statistics, to show us maybe where have we gone wrong, as this is one challenge that we have tried on many occasions to put a stop to, a problem that very many organizations have come on board to try and find a solution to. However, it is one problem that continues to affect each and every one of us one way or another through our friends, family, close relatives. So we want to understand the burden, how bad is it, and then of course the interventions that have been put in place to try and curb the teenage pregnancy, both at national and at regional level. Now, joining me to put this conversation into perspective is Helen Patricia Amuthaide, who is from Richa, Uganda, and Reverend Pauline Njiru, World Council of Churches, that is all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. Good morning, ma. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
How do you say good morning in Kiswahili?
Habari yako.
Habari yako.
Habari ya asubuhi.
I was going to say mambo, but I don't think that is right. Good morning, Pauline.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm okay.
Let's get into the problem first and foremost. Yes, how big or how bad is the problem of teenage pregnancy? Let's look at Uganda before I ask the Reverend to tell us how bad it is in Nairobi.
I would say that the results, they add up to unsuccessfulness. It is bad. It is bad. And it is looking at economically, it is affecting us. Socially, it is affecting us. Always, it is like all around targeting us in every corner, putting the country between, a rock and a hard ground, because we have in this country, very happily, this government, what it brought on board was, women empowerment. So when teenage pregnancy is on the table, then we look at undoing what we think this government should have done or what it set out to do. So as a country, I think it is doing us injustice. And it is, it is taking us back to where we should have left, back to a place where I feel sad to say that we are going to, yeah. All
right. Reverend, tell us, is it as bad as it is in Nairobi when you listen to some of the things happening here in Uganda?
Teenage pregnancy is a challenge in this region. It's a big challenge also in Kenya. Most girls become vulnerable because of lack of information, lack of assistance when they need it, like lack of proper education of how not to be pregnant or how to take care of themselves. And the tragedy is that when the girls get pregnant, they actually bear the brunt of the problem, whereas they are not the ones contributing to the problem. Because sometimes we know the girls get pregnant through sexual and gender-based violence. They are raped. There is incest. But sometimes also they get pregnant through casual engagement into sex with their peers without enough knowledge. So the problem becomes bigger, that after the pregnancy happens, then the girl bears the burden. There's school dropping out, there's ostracization, stigmatization, the girl's health is at risk, and all those kind of things. It's quite a big challenge.
All right. We want to delve into now the cost of teenage pregnancy in regard to both the social and economic development. Reverend, I'll start with you. And then, of course, Pauline will give us her intake as well.
The cost is high in the sense that there are several issues involved. There's the health angle. There's high risk for these young people, these teenagers who get pregnant, because as you know, they are children. They have not yet fully developed into becoming mothers. Some of them discover they are pregnant and they see that they have to terminate the pregnancy. We've worked with the young people in the region, and they say that what they fear most is pregnancy, not HIV or STIs. And the reason they fear pregnancy is because the society has demonized pregnancy outside of marriage, and especially for young people. So the moment they discover they are pregnant, they start thinking of how do we deal with it. Sometimes they want to abort it, sometimes they want to take away their lives, and it becomes a health issue. But there's also the issue of the girls in schools, that they find themselves sometimes they have to get out of school, which means then their lives change drastically. Their opportunities narrow, and then they find that they are no longer at the same level where they were before they were pregnant, in the sense that they may not ever finish education, or even if they finish education, they have to grapple and fight a lot of stigmatization, a lot of challenges that come with early pregnancies.
All right. Would you like to supplement on what the Reverend has said, Pauline?
Yeah, sure. What I think is the cost, first and foremost, is the dependency. That the more, right now we have the percentage of, teenage mothers at 24%. And that's just as a country. We also know that it is not just as a country, it varies from regions to regions. So we have the dependence issue. When these guys drop out of school, when these young girls drop out of school, they're going to be dependent on someone. And then what happened to you thinking that that is a young girl who would add on the taxes? What happens to us believing that they will contribute something to this nation? That stops. So we have them depending on the parents or on their guardians. And finally, that will lead to poverty. And it will also lead to growth of regions. Some people say, oh, this region is more developed than the other. Oh, if you check out this organization, it has more of people coming from this region and not the other, especially the women. But that's because at a young age, you have some regions, especially the really poor regions, at having, the rate of teenage pregnancy at 34. And then you have in the wealthy and urban areas in Kololo at 16. So you already predict what is going to happen. Then the other thing that comes up is the social development, that we're still going to have depression, we're still going to have a nation where citizens believe government to yambe and not thinking they have to contribute something. That's adding to what Reverend Pauline has said is what I could say really, yeah.
Okay. Sometime early this year, government came out sternly to speak on teenage pregnancy, and of course, where you would have expected them to be for it, they actually pushed against it. So I want to pick your brain on how you believe this will impact on children and them attaining an education, and of course where you stand on this matter.
So first of all, we were disappointed. It's always disappointing to know that do you have the government pushing for you? But then you will ask, or someone watching will say, but who is the government? Aren't we all the government? Yes, we are all the government, and that's where we come in on what do we think. I think it's a time that we start looking at this as a cost, as something that is costing us as a nation and as a region, to say what interventions can we put up to combat this. As individuals, what more can we put? And in this case, I'm looking at strategic partnerships. How can we have everyone on board? You have media houses coming up to speak on the issue, making it news because it is news. We have churches coming up, the religious leaders coming up, we have CSOs coming up, we have the justice and the judicial system coming up. So working together to combat the issue, to make sure that we can put it down. And there are many interventions that we can put up, and it helps. It is not something that is made in stone. It is something that we can overcome, especially if we focus on education.
All right. Let's look at the impact of denying teenage mothers an education.
So that is quite absurd, because the only way, the only hope for women empowerment is through education. There is no other way you're going to push the girl child. If one has made this mistake, and some of them are not mistakes because they don't choose to be pregnant. Some of them are raped. Some of them are defiled. and they lack the ability to negotiate a relationship, to say, okay, this is where I stop. If someone, touches me like this is where I should stop. They don't have the ability to negotiate. They don't have the information that is adequate and accurate. And then now you come to a place where we do not have progressive policies. There is a story that has been running in the media of, a 16-year-old that went to police to report a development, and then he was raped
raped at the police
and
station.
he was raped at the police station. The laws are there, but we are not working on them. We're not holding people accountable. So it is very absurd that parliamentarians can say these young girls should not go back to school. The burden shouldn't lie on them. Why are they getting pregnant? Why are we not attacking that and working on it? Why are we in this era discussing denying a human right and not discussing giving a human right? The Constitution of Uganda, which is the supreme law, gives everyone a right to education, regardless of the mistakes that they have made. So for me to have this discussion at the moment, to discuss denying that human right, is sad. It makes me really, really sad. Yeah.
All right. Reverend, would you like to supplement on what she said? Recently in Uganda, you've heard what she said, yes?
Yes.
And you know what has happened?
Yes.
So your 2 cents on this matter.
It's very, very unfortunate that teenage girls are made to carry the burden of a societal problem, because teenage pregnancy is a reflection of the society, what we as leaders have done or failed to do. That being the case, making the young girl to carry that burden alone by denying her education, by denying her a future, is very, very unfortunate. I think what ought to happen is that we need to take it head on as leaders and realize that this is a reflection of who we are as a nation, as a region, and as leaders, and therefore see what is it that we have done wrong, what is it that we need to do right, and what is it that we have done right that we can do better. Now, if a girl is pregnant, we have to find out what is the problem. Is the problem pregnancy, or is the problem deeper than that? And as my friend Pat has really outlined, the problem could be bigger. There is the issue of gender-based violence. Rape in this region is taken so casually. Incest is taken as a family matter. Defilement, not many people are following these issues and really putting measures in place to show that culprits pay for these things. Then, when it comes to young people and sexuality information or knowledge, you realize that the young girls have got very little information. I was here in Uganda last year, and a 15-year-old pregnant in Wakiso, in one of the rescue centers, said that she didn't know how one got pregnant. And she tried to ask the mother, how does somebody get pregnant? And the mother dismissed her. And then she found herself pregnant. And the same mother kicked her out of home. So you wonder, the children don't have the information. The children don't have somebody giving them that information. When they ask, it is a no-go zone, because in this region, talking about sex is taboo. And therefore, when they find themselves pregnant, then we also punish them. It is a tragedy.
It is.
Yeah, so I think it's the high time that we looked at the gaps. Where are the gaps? Why are the teenage pregnancies on the rise? How do we bridge the gaps? How do we really get to empower the girl child and also the boys? Because I don't think the boys enjoy seeing their friends pregnant. Yeah? Yes.
All right. When you point out that we need to start, it's that point in time where we get to reflect on our actions and look at the gaps in addressing this particular problem. What interventions, what practical interventions do you think will curb the teenage pregnancy, both at national and at regional level, Reverend?
I'll share with you something that we are doing at the World Council of Churches. We have got something we are calling intergenerational safe spaces. It is a methodology that we have developed where we are beginning to educate or to train church leaders, parents, teachers, and adults to create safe spaces to dialogue and to talk with the young people. Basically, have a time within the family setup, within the church, within the school, when you can just allow the children to be themselves and to ask you each and every question they have and explain genuinely and as honestly as possible. And then also get to know what are their issues. What are they struggling with? What is happening within their quarters? We were shocked in one of those intergenerational conversations, safe spaces, to hear from the children the pressure there is from their peers to have sex. That in our days, having sex before marriage was like a taboo. Yes, today, it is swag, it is fashion. If you don't have sex, you are considered as abnormal. How do you educate the young people to know that that is not true? So they don't know. And we assume they are just being rude, they are just being wild, they are just being immoral. I think there is a real disconnect. So in the WCC, what we are doing is encouraging the people to listen and accompany the young people. Hear what they are going through. Hear, just last time, I was talking to Form 1 girls who are age 13 and 14. And they were saying that in school they are being bullied because they don't have boyfriends. So, and then you ask, what do you do with the boyfriends? The same girls come and ask, Pastor, can I kiss my boyfriend? Now, they don't have the skills of what it means to have a boyfriend and what to do with a boyfriend at age 13 or 14. And yet, when they discover it for themselves and from their friends who tell them the wrong things, then we come back and say, you did the wrong thing. They didn't know how far they were supposed to go or at what time they were supposed to stop. Because I feel as leaders, maybe we have failed in conveying very important education and information to these young people to give them the stamina and the skills they need to navigate the life that they are going through.
All right. Unfortunately, our time here is fast spent. We do have much limited time left here with us on the show. However, before we wrap up this discussion, before we wrap up the conversation, it is extremely deep to the core. I'd like to pick your final 2 cents, Patricia. What would you like the viewers to take home from the conversation we had this morning?
One, I would like the viewers to know that this discussion is not a luxury. It is not something we should put aside. The surge and teenage pregnancies keep going high. So everyone needs to be part of the conversation and not play activists or anything, but be a player on the table. Change that little that you think you can, so that we push the girl child to a certain level, because it will help us as a government, economically, most importantly, economically, to have them on the table contributing something. That's what I would want the viewers to take home. But also I want them to learn to hold people accountable. Let's hold each other accountable, especially our leaders. We put them in power, the things they're supposed to do, so we should hold them accountable to do those things, especially in terms of combating these norms that are conservative and the bias that the girl child should not go back to school. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Patricia. Reverend.
I would like my viewers to know that teenage pregnancy is not a problem of the pregnant girl. It is a societal problem. The girl is pregnant anyway. She doesn't have capacity to change that. As a society, we have capacity to prevent the next girl from getting pregnant. So we can start as a society at whatever level we are, at parental level, at the church leadership level, at the government level, at the civil society level. We can start putting measures in place that make sure that no other girl is going to be pregnant at teenage. The other thing is, a pregnant teenager is traumatized. She didn't plan to get pregnant. She found herself pregnant. So what that girl needs is love, support, and care, not demonization, judgment, and punishment. Again, she's pregnant anyway, so there is 2 human beings, or maybe more than 2, depending whether she's carrying twins or triplets. There are more human beings involved. There is need for all of them to access the necessary care. So before even putting measures that this girl should not go to school, we must also put measures that this girl accesses health services that are required for a pregnant mother. Then the other thing is, I would like to invite all my viewers to take stock of their own lives. Did you ever make mistakes as a teenager? What mistake did you make? How was it dealt with? How did you overcome that mistake? We have teenagers who have made mistakes of having sex before marriage. And because of that, they have got pregnant. Should that now mean their life comes to an end? Is it possible to make a mistake and still dust yourself off and become somebody? That is what we need to ask ourselves. That they have made a small mistake, they have had sex, either rape or consensual, but I don't believe in consensual teenage sex. They have made that mistake or that tragedy has happened to them. Does that mean then their life should come to a standstill? We must take responsibility as leaders to know that these young people depend on us. Sometimes when we make decisions casually, without much thought, we can actually be hurting a whole nation or a whole generation without knowing. So we need to know how to support the teenage pregnancies, pregnant girls, and how to prevent the next girl from getting pregnant. And take it as our personal, corporate responsibility and not blame it on the innocent, on the vulnerable, already suffering young teenage.
All right. Thank you so much, Reverend. It was really nice having you. You too, Patricia, all the way from Richahan, Uganda. The conversation this morning was the burden of teenage pregnancy in this country. And when you listen to the theories that everyone has with regards to teenage pregnancy, it's extremely disheartening, I beg your pardon, and heartbreaking that a child will be punished simply because that they got pregnant at an early age. And of course, something that the Reverend has pointed out that I entirely agree with, there is no such thing as consensual sex with someone that is below the age of 18. And as opposed to stigmatizing some of these young girls, I believe that they need just a helping hand to encourage them and show them the right path in life that they should take. And as the Reverend rightly pointed out, teenage pregnancy should not be the end of someone's life or should not be the end of someone's ability to grow. So we all make mistakes, however, we should not be punished for some of these mistakes for a lifetime. So let us have this conversation. Let's continue the conversation regarding teenage pregnancy and the burden that is. 25% being the highest in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in Uganda, is something that all of us as a nation need to reflect upon. This brings us to the end of the first session of the breakfast meeting. Another one comes up shortly. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.